Non-compete highlights. July 4th, 2021.
Hey folks, I'm Brenton Lengel. I am a poet, playwright, Appalachian Trail 2000 miler, and I am an anarchist. I am the author of Scout Comics Ringo, two-time Ringo nominated series, Snow White Zombie Apocalypse.
Nice.
Yeah, this is published by Scout Comics. I have a Kickstarter going currently online. I sent EJ the link. We're going for another 10 days. And this series started out as a play in New York City. I wrote it in 2010 and has just kind of refused to die since then and continued to be reborn in form after form. So the premise essentially is Snow White wakes up 28 days after the zombie apocalypse.
Okay, here we go.
The music, by the way, is by the Crew Shadows.
Nice. That was great.
This is without consent. No good.
I guess they agree with you. Rapunzel. Ever after
You are.
It is. That looked like a hell of a lot of photoshopping work for somebody to do all those layers.
Yeah.
Hats off to whoever had to do that. That's
The art was by Hyando Park, who is my artist for the first 2 issues. I change artists every so often, like every major beat in the story, because I'm very influenced by Sandman. And fairy tales, you get multiple tellings by multiple people. So to give you that real fairy tale experience throughout the series, I will change multiple times.
awesome.
But yeah, and the actual video work was done by Enon Films, which are the folks who have also. I wrote a screenplay and soon-to-be released comic series about the life of anarchist Buenaventura Durruti, and they optioned that film thanks to hearing about it actually on your channel, and they did the extra video work to make everything move there, which was really cool. So yeah, shout out
awesome.
to Enon Films.
I just shared a link to the full video because some folks wanted to watch the whole thing, so you can check that out. Maybe watch it after the broadcast.
After yeah, but definitely check that out. And if you can, pop the link for the Kickstarter into the. Oh, you know what? You got it. So
I got it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's the series. It started out as a play in New York. It actually has some very interesting things to say beyond, beyond like fairy tales, 70s kung fu, blood, sex, gender politics. Like there's some really interesting stuff that baked into it, both from my own outlook and then also like it's got some feminist bona fides, because the first place it was fully produced was as a 10-minute play in the Estrogenius Festival, a celebration of women's voices. Because somebody saw me from behind and just assumed I was a chick. No, I'm joking. The Estrogenius Festival, when I submitted, they will take work from men if they feel that it speaks to some aspect of the female experience. So yeah, we had a great time, and it's grown from there. It was in the New York Fringe Festival in 2012, and now has been published as a comic series and nominated for 2 Ringo Awards, which is huge. That's the Ringo Award is the official award of Baltimore Comic-Con. And if there hadn't been COVID, I would have been there and eating their complimentary lobster.
Spoiled again.
Yeah.
Congratulations, though. Regardless, I mean, that's awesome. Like, how did this all? You said this started back in 2010.
Yeah.
Right? And I know that around that time you were involved with Occupy, right?
Mm-hmm. It was right before I got involved with Occupy, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
remember.
did those dovetail at all, or?
It definitely does. So, I got out of college in like 2006, And I said to my, with a degree in theater, and I was like, oh my God, what did I do? Why did I get a degree in theater? And I proceeded to get a decent amount of jobs, you know, as a actor in and around the Midwest. And after working both acting jobs and like regular jobs, mostly for amoral and abusive people, my politics went very far from the right libertarianism of my college to a much more anarchist perspective, which was mostly born actually when I hiked the Appalachian Trail, Maine to Georgia, because a lot of people don't know this, but the thru hiker community on the Appalachian Trail runs in a lot of ways like an anarchist community. They don't really have the ideology of it, but the entire trail is based on, you know, random acts of kindness from strangers. And that's how we get, plus, you know, 20 miles out in the woods, there's no police. And yet it's one of the safest places you can be in the entire world. Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah. I've looked into hiking the Appalachian Trail many, many times. There are a lot of like houses you can stay in that are just like cottages that are just like open.
Open to anybody.
Stop and sleep in them. Yeah.
Yeah. There's even a great story. There's one homeless guy in Georgia. Like the police got sick of dealing with him. So one day the sheriff like just drove him up to the beginning of the Appalachian Trail and was like, look, you can just sleep in the houses. As long as you just keep going north, it's going to be fine. You know, get out of my hair. And the guy started out, he was carrying everything in like a 5-gallon bucket with him. And then like, as he continued onto the trail, people started helping him. And, you know, he got a pack from outfitters in Damascus, Virginia. He got poles from hiker boxes and everything. And by the end of it, you couldn't tell him from a hiker. And he actually managed to walk all 2,200 miles in freaking Summit Katahdin.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't know what happened after that. But, you know, the whole community of thru hikers, these are people that don't fit in. And we're all at parts in our lives. So it was a really inspiring thing to find out about somebody that had been reintegrated into society essentially, but by doing this kind of a journey that is incredibly difficult and taxing. And also, fun fact, exists entirely because Benton Mackay was a socialist. And he got back, and in fact, the first guy that hiked it, Earl Schaefer, whose nickname was Crazy One, like he got back after World War II and found himself hiking the entire trail. Meanwhile, the people who built it were like, I don't think you can actually do the whole thing at once. And he proved everybody wrong.
There's kind of a leftist history with rambling in the UK as well. I'm not as familiar with it, but I know that like the Ramblers were really big on allowing people to have access to land. So like the UK has some actually pretty progressive, I mean, I don't know if they still do, but they have historically had very progressive land access rights. And basically people that, they call it rambling, but people that are like hiking through the UK backcountry, they're allowed to like go through people's private property and stuff. And that was kind of a sort of leftistish movement. I saw a few videos on that. They're pretty interesting. So, well, I talked about it in my video on art and science in my How Anarchism Works series, which is, and funny enough, talking about the SCA, because it's also another kind of anarchistic, socialistic experience to be in the SCA, ironically enough. And ironically enough, Milton Friedman's son talked about how he likes to provide like free
gem cutting and tools and information to people within the SCA. It's almost as if humans actually don't behave like we normally do under capitalism. We're just kind of forced to.
When you get involved with a hobby, that's how hobbyists typically are, is like we're excited about it, we're passionate about it. And so we will like share materials and help each other out. And that's what like when I was like 16 years old and I was going to SCA tournaments, I didn't have any fucking money at all. I had like no money. I was getting like $5 or $10 a week from my parents and like for gas. But I managed to build a full suit of armor because like these, you know, older folks were like, here's a, I remember like one guy gave me like a big, you know, like 8-foot long piece of sheet metal. And then another guy like let me use his workshop and we all worked together and I built myself a suit of armor. It would have cost me like over $1,000 back then to buy that, but I just made it with their help and guidance, and I didn't spend any money on any of it. Luna had kind of a, I don't know, you wanted to be an artist when you were a kid, right?
Yeah.
And
I dreamed that, and I initially my mom, my dad just stopped me doing that because they didn't think that I can make money.
Yeah. So a little,
My art is
even in
very
Vietnam,
sad.
there's this.
Like I remember one of my best friends in high school, we drew together. We drew like a comic book, together. And I brought that home one day because we had to leave it in a class because we didn't dare to bring it home.
Yeah, they had to leave it in the classroom so like their
Yeah.
parents wouldn't find it.
Oh,
One day I
gee.
brought it home so I can draw it more at night, and my dad saw it and he tore it apart. And I still keep the parts right now to this day.
I'm glad you did.
Why don't we tape
You
it back
should frame
together?
those.
Yeah. But see, but it's like, and by the way, Luna's mom and dad, look what she's doing now. She's making a living doing artistic, creative
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah. Well, again, because art is not a job. Art is a calling. We can't
Yeah.
not do it.
Right.
Yeah.
I first started my business simply because I wanted to finance my art, because I wanted to be a filmmaker. Funny enough, you talked about getting rejected. I got rejected from I got a bachelor's degree at the University of South Carolina, and then I applied to like 4 different film schools for a master's or an MFA. All of them rejected me. So I was just like, you know what, this, because like as far as I knew, that was like the quickest path to getting into like working in Hollywood. And then I worked on some Hollywood sets, and I was like, this is just a machine. It's not really like, it'll be, if I'm lucky, it'll be decades before I could ever like work my way up through the system. So I was just like, all right, let's start a little business, and then I can finance my own films, That was my whole thing. And so, yeah, it is like a calling. And then I worked with all these other artists, and I started to realize that they were only like the artists that were selling their art. They were like only selling it to finance the stuff that they wanted to do that they couldn't sell.
I remember there was a point where I was working 60, 80 hours a week with no overtime, no benefits, for what I was assured was just over minimum wage. Because if we, like the company had declared the way we did it, we would get tips. And the company even told me, you have to turn over all of your tips to us, because if we don't get your tips, then we can't afford to pay you your wage. And there were some very abusive situations going on there with regard to, people in positions of power and people who were not in positions of power. And I looked around and I saw all these people who were there just because they really, really wanted to be an artist and to do art, and they weren't really getting the chance to do it. So I realized at that point, I was like, you know what, I would rather work and make money and do my art on the side than be a professional full-time actor and like do work that I don't believe in. And I followed that for a really, really long time. It's a very interesting thing because like I wrote a play called Mike about the New York underground open mic scene. And there's even like a monologue in that where the characters are talking, because a lot of it is about art and class structure and struggle. And one of the characters is essentially saying that, like, look, art for art's sake doesn't pay the bills because we don't do it for them. Like we come, you have a neighborhood that's really, run down. It attracts broke artists. The broke artists proceed to do awesome stuff. Rich asshole comes in and says, I've got to see this awesome stuff. And suddenly up pops Awesome Stuff Bank and Awesome Stuff Cafe. And before we know it, our neighborhood is too good for us, and we're pushed off to another corner to live and breed like roaches.
Well, artists are specific, and this is some of the work that I was doing back in the mid 2000s. Artists are specifically heavily exploited by like that machine, because there's this concept of the creative economy. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea is that engineers want to live in a place where there's lots of art. Like they want to go to places where this is like a shorthand, but basically they want to go to places where they have musicians and where they can buy pieces of art and they can go and watch independent films. And so they want to like live in a vibrant creative community. So these small towns all across the United States set up these like art incubators and stuff like that. And then it ends up becoming this very exploitative system where they're just basically, because what it does is it fetishizes art and artists, right? Mm-hmm. Just like the MCM mode of the economy that Marx talks about, where they're fetishizing commodities because they only really care about getting more money. Artists become fetishized as like, okay, we need to have lots of artists in our town because we really want the engineers and the tech companies and the firms that are going to bring a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And so they end up doing this like terrible job of creating this really toxic environment where they want, you could talk, any professional artist will talk to you about the experience they've had in these systems. It's like extremely toxic. It's a grinder. And then once they get the tech companies, then like they immediately cut funding for all the arts programs that, you know what I mean? It's like, even in the best case scenarios, the artists end up getting hosed in the end.
Yeah. Well, and again, because oftentimes capitalism as an economic system functions around either your product or your labor, taking it, fencing it off, and saying, you don't get this until you pay me. And that's when it comes to artists, because it is a compulsion in a lot of ways, because we create because we have to. Like, you know, I mean, nothing against coal miners, but like what I would always say is like, if there's no coal to mine, a coal miner is not going to go and set up his own tiny mine and put some wine out and like, invite his friends and family to see him mine coal.
Artisanal coal.
Yeah. Oh God. Don't make artisanal coal a thing.
Someone's gonna do that now.
Someone is really gonna.
No, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's fascinating because it's a passion. It is a compulsion that we have as artists.
Art to me seems to be about finding something authentic about the way that you see the world, something true, and sharing it with someone else in a way that a connection is made between you and them, even if you don't directly connect with them. Like, even if I don't talk to somebody who finds something meaningful and important in my comic about like kung fu and zombies. Right. But yeah, there's that fragment of me in all of the work that gets done, and the real joy of it is that connection that is created, as opposed to, and I'm not putting propaganda in a negative, I'm not putting it in a negative thing, but propaganda oftentimes functions more to get an idea out there for good or for ill, to persuade people. And art can be persuasive, right, but one is persuasive first and true second, and the other is true first and persuasive second, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's overlap, you know, in terms of because like I used to be completely, when it came to my art. This is a really interesting topic. Actually, we should probably have a whole dedicated discussion to this because I can.
I would love to. Yeah.
But like originally, like when I was in my early to mid 20s, I had like no political ambition whatsoever with my art at all. Like I didn't want to have I just wanted to make straight up like comedy films and stuff like that. And now I find that my artistic drive and my politics have sort of really dovetailed in this way that I never expected would happen. But to me, it's like, I really like with the Cobra thing that I did. It was really satisfying. It was very satisfying to create something where I was like, I was creating something that I felt was an authentic, artistic, output from, for me and the people I was working with. But at the same time, I feel like I was also creating a truthful message and actually building truth into this like propaganda model that, it was like a détournement thing, because G.I. Joe was like propaganda for toy companies to sell toys, first of all, and second of all for like the USA to like sell patriotism. And so like kind of, circumventing that was like for me a very fulfilling artistic experience. So I shared the Kickstarter link one time. I'll share it one more time with folks. And you've got 10 more days to go. So yeah.
10 days to go. We're on Kickstarter up until then. We've already hit our goal, but we're trying to hit our stretch goals. So once we surpass the one that we've got at 15,000, which we will then go on to another stretch goal, probably around 16, if I can hit that. And I'm just looking to finish strong and get the story out to as many people as possible, which is really, really exciting. I'm very excited as to where the series is going. And I've also got several new series about to launch, one of which, as I showed on the channel earlier, is a biopic / war epic about the anarchist hero Buenaventura Durruti, who is a personal hero of mine. So that's exciting too. Yeah.
Lots of exciting stuff going on.
Yeah.
Well, keep us posted. Hopefully in the next couple, maybe we can have you come on the Dialectic and we can have like a full discussion about this stuff.
That sounds awesome.
This is really interesting stuff, and I wish you all the best with it. I hope everybody checks out Snow White Zombie Apocalypse. And Brenton, you have a channel too, right? A YouTube channel?
Yeah, just Google my name, Brenton Lengel, BrentonLengel. On the channel, I talk about philosophy, Buddhism, anarchism, and arts. I also do a lot of debates with modern day debate. I haven't done a lot of them recently because I've been working on this Kickstarter, but I'm looking to get back into that. And I got to tell you, I was really tickled to learn that Luna was an artist. I mean, I already knew you were, but the drawing, that was, for the longest time, that was what I thought I was going to do, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I went into writing because I didn't have the discipline to get really, really good at it.
Luna has done some stuff for non-compete. Actually, the part 3 of the Why Capitalism Sucks video, Luna did all the drawing of the aliens and all that kind of stuff. Luna's done a lot of artwork for us here. And she actually designed, she designed and made like a Super Jump Woman's costume. Luna's very, she's a fashionista as well. But no, we'll have to have a fuller discussion down, in the near future. We can talk about this stuff and really unpack it. Have fun, be safe.
Bye.
Absolutely, you too. Bye.
Bye. Wow, that's fun. Well, so yeah, check out that Kickstarter, folks. Brenton is awesome. We've been debate partners. We've done a lot of streams together. Very cool stuff, and the artwork is beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that Derudy film. I hope that gets made soon. I want to watch that.
Subscribe,